coordinator of Pacto Alegre. That's the quadruple helix movement that we have. And because of that, at some point, some of my main partners in Pacto kind of got together with the mayor and they kind of made a conspiracy to. So I became unwillingly the Secretary of Innovation of Porto Alegre. In a sense, to bring Pacto Alegre and the idea of the network way of doing things, the collective way, to the municipal administration. So,
fantastic, fantastic. So, Luis Carlos, thank you so much for spending some time. It's really impressive. What's happening here in Porto Alegre is a really interesting innovation story, and it's how we can use innovation collectively.
yeah.
It's not a solo player; it's a multiplayer game. Could you tell me where it started, how it came about?
Well, we go back a little bit. We started discussing the idea of making innovation really impact the city in a huge and transformative way in 2017. And like always, it was because we were in a kind of a crisis, public safety crisis, loss of talent crisis. The city was kind of smoldering down. It was depressed in some way because it remember that was one of the best cities in terms of quality of life in the 80s. But it didn't really adapt to the new times, to this knowledge era that we are living today. But the key issue was that we believed that we had the right ingredients, people, universities, academic sector, business leaders. We had them all. If you look at Porto Alegre, you would find a lot of strengths, but we had roots of the movement. We had other experiences, preliminary experience of how to kind of mobilize the quadruple helix, but none of them really got traction, But they left some kind of mindset provocation. And when we were kind of defied by the new administration, there was a new mayor in the city that just looked at us and said, okay, you speak a lot about innovation. What this innovation can really do for my city, And some of the business leaders, they kind of look at us and said, we would like to bet on the city, but the city does not seem to be ready for that. It's a bureaucratic, it's a city that's losing talent. There was a message that got into some of the emails at the time that said that the only way out of Porto Alegre was the airport, and that kind of got us shaken because we were seeing the future of the city kind of being robbed somehow or going through our fingers in a sense, because we were losing the most important ingredient, that was people, creative people, innovative people, they were beginning their careers, and we were getting the kind of recognition that we were a locked city, a very heavy, not friendly to new business, to innovation. And we decided to change that. What we did was to look, a lot of us, the mayor at the time wanted to create a kind of innovation council, bring people and create a big innovation. And we said to him, let's not do it formally, but we will sit down with some of the leaders from different areas, some of the business leaders that were more innovative, that talk about innovation, some of the academic leaders, especially those in the universities that were already involved with business incubators, scientific parks, the ones that kind of already had a kind of a network of solidarity among these players, because they did not have much connection or dialogue with the university, that sometimes didn't even understand what these innovative spaces were doing inside the university, and there we had a seed of what we call the generous mindset, the idea that You do not do things because you will have a direct reward, or but you bet on the ecosystem and you try to be generous. And when everybody is doing that, then the ecosystem improves and everybody kind of gets its own benefits for that. But this, and we start talking about that. But the problem is that when you want to do this kind of change, you need a lot of people to bet on it at the same time and change the way that they behave. Because if it, just myself, if just I'm being generous, in fact, I will share what I have, people will take advantage of it, and I will get with less.
Yeah. Free riders.
So the challenge was to convince a lot of relevant and important players to change the way they were behaving, to bet on an ecosystem, really ecosystem kind of connections at the same time. And we this kind of 15 guys that sit around the table in this university, Unicinos, to kind of give an answer to the mayor, to this businessman that, and there was one guy that was important in this. It was the heir to one of the most important media outlets. And he was one of the guys that said, I want to believe, we are in Porto Alegre, I want to believe. That was important because when we started, we got a lot of free media coverage because this guy kind of mobilized the whole. So that was one of the instruments that we used to kind of put the Pacto into people's minds somehow. And we sit down and we look at it, some of the we've already experienced it, and we had been in a lot of different innovation ecosystems all around the world: Israel, Finland, the Silicon Valley, Shanghai, and the whole Chinese ecosystem. The problem was that most of these ecosystems had so different characteristics from Brazil that sometimes people do not believe, okay, that's the Silicon Valley. We won't have never the venture capital structure in there. We won't have the kind of public orientation that China has, the public directives. But then we started to look at some, and that's important, how we can mirror somehow, how you can create a narrative that's based and that has sense and can be absorbed by your ecosystem. So we look at Barcelona, we look at Medellin, we look at Recife, that was the city in Porto Alegre that was starting with Porto Digital, a new way of looking into an innovation ecosystem. And we start saying to some of the guys, okay, these are not so different from us. They are Latin like ourselves. They are not, they do not have these special characteristics that these other ecosystems have. We just need to believe that it would be better for us if we can stop um, um, wasting energy. And then nowadays we talk about the PSG, do you know, the football team paradigm, you know. It's not enough to have very good players like Messi, like Neymar, like Mbappe, if they do not play together. Because each one of them will try to do their own play and they will get in front of each other. They will not work well, you know. It's a lot of work for little reward. And we start to talk about that with some of the people and say, okay, we need to do a pact. We need to kind of create a collective census. We need to be able to act together and make sure that the energy that we are putting into any of these initiatives kind of get um, organized, so we can do more with less effort. You know, I used to say when we were talking with people about the pact in its earlier days, that I say, let's say that you want to help the city, and I have an imaginary ball in here. put all your mental power to move this ball. That's what we need. You want to be better citizens. You want to find the possible consensus that we have in the city. And I would give 2 or 3 seconds and say, okay, we did not organize. So some people try to move this ball to the left, to the right, upwards, downwards. In the end, even if you were really trying to put all your mental telekinesis into it, we didn't have much movement because we didn't organize the system. If everyone moved the ball from downwards upwards in a vertical way, we would achieve much more movement with the same energy. That was kind of some of the narratives that we started to kind of put in place because we knew that the biggest challenge that we were facing was a mindset change. People had to think that it was possible to do things in Porto Alegre, and more than that, that they didn't need to be lonely heroes. I need, because I am a powerful university, or I am a enlightened mayor, or I am the Federation of Industries, I will do the change. Let me do it. Sit down and let me do the work. No, we knew that that wouldn't work because we had history about it. If this project was supported just by the public administration or just by the business leaders or just by society, it would get stuck at some point. We needed all of the different helixes to work together. But we need to start from some point because in the end, the recipe that we were proposing to the mayor, to the business leaders, to the academic leaders was kind of simple. Let's just do things together. Let's just talk before acting. It's so simple that it seems to be a little bit silly sometimes. Okay, if that's simple, why we didn't do it together? That can be the way that we really change the destiny of the city. But it was, and we worked very hard to convince people that they needed to bet on it. And when we started to talk about doing a pacto, doing a kind of a collective agreement that would make us behave as an ecosystem, the business leaders would look into the public administration and say, okay, we didn't really trust these guys. They will not keep it up over different administrations or whatever. And we got a little bit stuck in the beginning. Where we start that, where we can provoke change and show that we can act in a different way. And then we had an enlightenment in one of these meetings. Why don't we start with the universities? Because the universities were quite well, but everyone was playing their own game. We had two of the best private universities in the country, the top federal university, one of the best public universities among the 3 best public universities, and all of them at that point were kind of living quite well. But we went to the presidents of the 3 universities and we said, we need to create an alliance for innovation. The universities need to say that they believe that together they will be more impactful than alone.
Yeah.
And then we design. That's the intentionality. We design the way that we wrote what would be sent to the press. We organized the communication of the 3 universities so they would kind of say the same thing with the same words and from a kind of collective point of view. We designed the moment with the city administration, the state administration, the 3 presidents signing at the same time, because we didn't want to have hierarchy, like one president sign for last or whatever. In one of the most important rooms, that's the room of the main hall of the Federal University that has a big painting that is famous about professions. So we kind of, that's something that we think that we talk about when we go into the pact. Do not forget the details. how people will read you, how people will sense it, how people will understand what you are doing. This unspoken communication is very powerful. So in April 2018, we signed the first agreement to create the Alliance for Innovation. And it was amazing because, in the next few days and weeks, we received plenty of positive feedback. That's the first time that something different is happening in the city. The Federation of Industries wanted to enter the Alliance for Innovation. Other universities wanted to enter. It kind of created the first energy, the first shaking down of the environment that say, okay, we can do something different. If these universities are going together, of course, I was a little bit afraid that my counterparts at PUC and Unicinos would be just fired, because these universities spent like 20, 30 years kind of sustaining and reinforcing and make sure that they are individual identities, because they would compete for the same kind of students, from the same classes. So it was really groundbreaking, the idea that we would sign Alliance for Innovation with 3 tones of blue, and just smaller would be URGS, PUC, Unicinos, and the Alliance would be the combined movement. The idea kind of was a little bit inspired by the research triangle from North Carolina.
Okay, yes.
And we were very happy to see other universities nowadays, not just in Brazil, but also I've been in Sweden now. Karolinska, the University of Stockholm, and KTH are also doing an alliance in terms of innovation. I think it's a very powerful way of kind of make sure that you bring together. And the first project that was proposed to Pacto Alegre later on by the universities was a combined master's on innovation ecosystems with the experts from the 3 universities. That was amazing. For the first time, someone would get a degree signed by the 3 universities. Wow. But that was the initial fuel. And then we had the opportunity to say to people, okay, you can't be part of the alliance. The alliance is for the universities. They are committed to do it. But one of the things that the universities want to propose is the idea of an innovation pact, a quadruple helix movement for the whole city. And we organized it 3 months later, on July 2018, a moment here in Unicinos also, with kind of 1,000 people, the most important leaders from all sectors, all the mayors and the ex-mayors of the city were here. A lot of political agents, the most important leaders in terms of the academic sector, many of the business leaders, and a lot of people that was engaged by the idea of doing something different in innovation. And we brought what we call nowadays the Pirlim Pim Pim power, the power that fairy on Peter Pan used to spray on people, Tinkerbell. We say that José Piquet, that's the expert that we invited to be part of the creation of Pacto Alegre. He was our Tinkerbell power, because he kind of made people believe that they could fly, because he had been in Barcelona, he had been in Medellin, he was kind of advising Florianopolis that was doing kind of innovation regional centers, and that was the envy of Porto Alegre, of Rio Grande do Sul at the time, because they are our neighbors. That's where we kind of go to have vacations on the beach, and they were kind of moving ahead in terms of creating jobs and creating the IT cluster that was kind of surpassing ours, that was renowned in the country. So a kind of competition is also valid to shake you down, to make sure that you want to act. And we designed this event for July 2018, where we kind of, again, we organized the event in a sense that a lot of people would go to the stage and say that they felt that we needed to do something more, that it was the time to do things in terms of ecosystem kind of way. The local startup organization association here, some of the movements for innovation, some of leaders of the scientific parks, and we brought people from Florianopolis, from Medellin, from Barcelona, that would say, okay, our cities changed because we believe that we could find a common agenda, and we would bet on it, lowering the idea of the individual champion and believing on the strength of the many. Yeah? And we proposed Pacto Alegre. And like the floor was kind of very, 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 very excited about it. And so we kind of say, okay, we are at a maturity level that allows us to go beyond the alliance, the innovation alliance among the universities, to go to Pacto Alegre. We receive a lot of positive feedback. There is and again, Zero Hora was the main journal that we have in here, but it was from that media outlet that we told you about. So Zero Hora was stamped. The first step towards a change by innovation, it was something, but they treated it quite well. We took José Piquet to speak with the main redactors, I don't know exactly, people that in charge, editors of the, to understand a little bit about how we need to create a narrative towards innovation, because if the newspaper just says bad things about crime and economic downturn and everything else, it kind of gets stuck in people's minds that there is no way that things are getting worse and worse and worse. So we start to say, okay, you need to do that. It's part of your job. People like horrible things sometimes, but you need to have a kind of other part of communication where you say things about what's getting right in the city, what's getting good in the city, and that kind of changes the way. And that's one of the important things about Pacto Alegre. There are the things that Pacto did, and there are the things that the actors that are involved in Pacto Alegre kind of changed because they started talking about, reflecting about the values that we proposed in Pacto Alegre. So Zero Hora changed and created a line of journalism that was solution journalism, So they have a lot of news items that talk about how we can change things for better, The business leaders kind of one of them was Daniel Randon. Daniel Randon is the heir to one of the biggest companies that we have in here that manufactures big buses and structures. It's a very successful company that exports internationally. But he was, at that point, the coordinator of the innovation committee at the Federation of Industries of Rio Grande do Sul. So he was invited to be part of the table. Let me say a little bit about it. One of the Pacto Alegre was an idea that was being created in conjunction by ourselves here, the ones that got involved, that were designated by universities, 4 guys, myself, Professor Jorge Aldi, Professor Luis Lambi from URGS, Professor Jorge Aldi from PUC, and Professor Alsones Balestrin from Unicinos. Those are the guys that were kind of empowered by their presidents to say, okay, go ahead, support Pacto Alegre. We had a very strong support from this media outlet. We had a very strong support from the mayor at the time, that was Marquesan, that kind of said to all his staff, before doing anything in the city, talk with the guys from Pacto Alegre. So that was the message for the municipal secretaries and the administration teams. So we had very good support, and that's maybe something that we are understanding nowadays the importance of having champions that really believe on the idea, because the movement in its early stages do not have deliveries, do not have power, so it will borrow the legitimacy of the people that are talking that this is important. So one of the things that when we were designing among July 2018 and December 2018, when we announced that we were ready to go ahead with Pacto Alegre, we sit down with José Piquet, we decided the groups. It was volunteers from the universities designated by we had kind of 12 people from the university, and some people that were designated by the municipal administration, 4 or 5 people. These kind of 15, 16 people kind of gave, it was the first, we call it nowadays the technical operative committee, that was the support that the coordinator had to kind of go ahead and do the things that were necessary for Pacto to. And this was the group that started working with Piquet to understand a little bit some concepts from Barcelona, Medellin, and adapted them, because we didn't really translate we didn't transpose the recipe. We adapted and we created something that was specially done for Porto Alegre. But one concept was very important that was brought by Piquet, that was the idea of the table of the Pacto Alegre. The idea that once every 6 months, the presidents or the vice presidents or very senior administrators of the most important institutions in the city would sit down to listen what was happening and vote if those projects would have to be supported by Pacto Alegre. That was a very important issue in the end, because we understand that when we took Randon, the mayor, the presidents of universities, the two presidents of the football clubs that were part of the table of Porto Alegre, and sit them down for one morning to listen ideas of the projects and manifest if their institutions would like to support, be leaders, or at least divulge, or approve the projects as something important for the city. We would kind of pass on to society that that thing was important. If those guys, those very recognizable faces, would sit down, would stop their agendas and sit down for one morning to get involved in this should be important. Again, those are narratives, those are imaginaries that are being created somehow. So the idea of the table was very successful, and like in the first meetings of Pacto Alegre, the idea was, if it was not the president or the vice president of the organization, the place of that institution would be vacant. You cannot send someone from the third or fourth grades.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because you need to say that's important enough. If you don't involve it, don't send someone that is on a low scale in terms of a hierarchy, because we need those faces. We need to show that this is the most important bet that we are doing collectively for the city. And we kind of create our methodology to define challenges, to have projects that would respond to the challenges. And every project needs to have a long-term view, but a short-term delivery. That was very important, because in other moments in Porto Alegre, we would have good ideas, we have kind of good support from different institutions, but always it would be, we need like 20 people dedicated to this project, we need 3 million to go ahead with the project. And then you would go back to try to find the people or try to find the money, and the energy would kind of. So when we defined that we would, I'm getting a little bit ahead. Well, in December, we decided that we had the conditions to create Pacto Alegre. we created a logo for Pacto Alegre that was created by some of the most important not publisher, marketing guys from Porto Alegre that were very expensive, that never have worked together. And for the first time, they would work together in a own unique design, sitting down around the table. When we talk about that with some of the guys from the newspaper, they said, I never believed that they could even sit down in the same room because they are so personal in their creations. That was some of the things that we kind of got, and that was building the magic of Pacto Alegre. When we say, wow, we have these three guys, these top guys, working together with the communication teams of the universities to create a logo for free for Pacto Alegre that has a lot of meaning, transparency, for quadruple helix, people would say, "Oh, that must be important again," you know. So we created the logo, we created the site, we created the manifesto, and then we had a very important also decision. Piquet asked us to find the 50 most important institutions that we think would sit down on the table. We got to a short list of 77. We couldn't get to 50. We say, okay, these guys cannot be outside. The whole health sector that's important for Porto Alegre. So the presidents of the main hospitals, some academic sectors, the clubs of football, retail is very important. So a lot of organizations that were dealing with retail, the Commercial Association of Porto Alegre, the Federation of Commercial Associations of Rio Grande do Sul, five innovative companies like the ones that were more recognized in the city, the new business that were coming out, sit down in the table. So we got a mix that was very important. Some of the guys from the, I don't know exactly how to, you get to know, but the Justice Tribunal, the guys that control the public accounts, you know, so representatives from these guys, representatives from the municipal chamber, representatives from 6 or 7 municipal secretaries, all of those were invited, and we got the commitment to go and listen to every one of them before making the first sitting down for Pacto Alegre. Why? Because we knew that we needed to kind of understand what were the common values, what was the common agenda, what was the possible consensus that we could propose for the city. Because we had a history of being very, we call here journalists, you know, black and white kind of, you know, Grenal, because it's the two sports teams that we have in here. So everything was, if you are on the left, you are not on the right. If you are on top, you are not on bottom, you know. It was very divisive, some of the way that we think. Every idea would have automatically its detractors somehow. So we knew that for Pacto Alegre, we wanted to be apolitical, not apolitical, apartidary, because Pacto is literally political, it's a political, but it didn't have to have partisans associations, you know. Everybody was welcome. We knew that Pacto Alegre would be a collective view that had some conflicts. You know, if you put down the sports clubs, the football clubs, or the health sector, or the public administrators, they would see different cities. You know, so it was natural that we would have things that we would not agree upon. But the magic of Pacto was to find what we could agree upon if we wanted a better city. So to do that, we spent numerous hours among December 2018 and March 2019 when we got the first sit down, interviewing every single institution. What do you think about Porto Alegre? What do you feel are the strengths? What's lacking? What are you doing in terms of innovation? Because that was something important. We knew we weren't start from scratch. We need to respect the idea that innovation had deep roots in the city. We didn't want to do a chapter zero, you know. We want Pacto to be a kind of a propeller of what was already happening in the city. The idea of Caldera, that was already in the mind of one of the leading guys, uh, but Pacto kind of enveloped it, brought other business leaders, um, rounded a little bit the concept of what Caldera should be, you know. So Pacto has this idea of being the connector and the shaper of how ideas would become more collective. And we have that say that there is always a room for a new hand on the
tiller.
yes, on the tiller. And that was a must. You know, we would say that to people. Okay, if you want to propose a project for Pacto, you need to be generous. It's not your project. It must be everyone that wants to collaborate in the project must have the possibility to do so. You know, so we spoke with all these institutions, and we sit down and try to draft a proposal for the challenges that we would bring to the first sitting down of the table of Pacto Alegre, that would have meaning to all those 77 institutions. So the challenges that we propose, we have 6 main challenges and one like a strategic project, you know, because we knew that sometimes we wanted a Coringa, a Joker, not so, a Joker category there, because like Caldera, we wanted to do it, you know, even if it's not fitting exactly one of the challenges, you know. So it's quality of life, business environment, city image, business environment. Let me remember in modernization of public administration, um, city infrastructure, and I'm missing one. Education and talent. Yeah, those are the 6 because they would relate to something. There was something for every single institution. They could relate to one of the things, one of the pains, one of the things that we were doing would be reflected in one of those challenges. And that worked quite well. Yeah? We did that, and we sit down in March 2019. And again, the narrative. We sit down on the city birth, city anniversary, you know, the day the city was founded.
Very symbolic.
Because Pact was a gift that we were giving to the city. That was a new way the city would develop from now from then on, you know. So we did it on 26th of March 2019. That was the city anniversary. We sit down in Pacto for the first time, and we chose to sit it down in one of the most historical buildings in the city, you know, where the city was created, the Commercial Association of Porto Alegre, a majestic place, and like we have a lot in England. You know. Again, the idea was always trying to build up on kind of a neuro stimulus to people somehow, you know. And we proposed the 6 challenges, and they accepted all of them. They just made us change because the education and talent was called talent. And people said, okay, we want education. I know that education is embedded into the creation of talent, but we want to say that the challenge is called education and talent. And that's one of the things also. When we were talking with the institutions, the only topic that came up on all conversations was education. All institutions at some point had talked about the power of education, the need for education, the necessary attention that we need to give to the young and to the development of education to support innovation. And then we started Pacto Alegre, 26th of March. The idea was, which projects are we looking for? And the first generation of projects, we decided to do a co-creation, to kind of involve people. And we had our basket of strategic projects. Those are 3. The Caldera, because we knew Caldera was shake up, you know. We had the masters there among the three universities because that was symbolic also for us. And the third one was a project called digital health, because we knew that health was very important and we needed to have. That was a project that it's now getting through, you know, because the health sector, because of the pandemic and everything else, got a little bit out of track, you know. Now we are doing, and Porto Alegre it's a leader on that. We're passing a law that makes sure that private and public universities are stimulated to share data, because we want Porto Alegre to be one of the most interoperable cities in terms of health in Brazil. But you know, those are the things. And we learn also about Pacto Alegre is that sometimes we are not ready for some things. The ideas are good, but we are not mature for them. We do not have the leadership. So we got a little bit like we say to to sometimes the startups. If you do have an idea, but it's not getting through, it's not working well, put it on the in the wall a little bit and wait for the right time to develop it. You know, so we learn to be more relaxed about expectations on the projects. Some would go quite well, and we have things to deliver like Caldeira, South Summit, the branding of Porto Alegre. Porto Alegre now has a brand like I Love New York that was created by 42 companies together in a way that is being now being talked about in the design circles, like a totally different way of making a brand that comes from the root, has a bottom up way of designing a brand, not a top down way of designing a brand. It's horizons. It's the mark of Porto Alegre that's now it's getting into all publicity material of the city, and there is a law. The municipal chamber approved the mark for the whole of the history of Porto Alegre as the mark of Porto Alegre. It's not associated with one administration. So we do have deliveries, and this co-creation it's also something that we learn. And I go back to that point that we're making. That we needed to make sure that people would not find excuses to not start doing things right now. So in these co-creations among March and May 2019, we would open up the space. You want to collaborate with Challenge Education and Talent, we would invite all the institutions in the table, but it's an open reunion. We would we would announce it on the journals. Pacto Alegre will sit down on this day to discuss possible projects for the Challenge Education and Talent, or for the Challenge Business Environment. You know, invitation to all the institutions, open meeting to anyone else. People would get together here in Unicinos, in one of those big rooms in there, where you can write upon the walls. We would design a kind of warming up exercise where people would say, okay, what we need to do, what are the good things that we are doing about business environment? Okay, go down to the walls and write proposals. People that believe that that proposal is nice, go ahead and do your contribution. And then we would pass on looking at the proposals in the walls, and everybody in the room would have votes to decide which ones would be taken to the sitting down of Pacto Alegre. And it was amazing because many of these things were things that were already being done by one of the institutions, but in a sense, they were kind of brought to a new level of environment where a lot of people were kind of advocating for the idea. You know, that was very nice to see. We would end up with a big round sitting where everyone would say, how did you feel about the experience of constructing together the proposals for Pacto Alegre? that got us a lot of volunteers for Pacto, people that got engaged in a sense in building Pacto Alegre. But there was a kind of setback. The problem is that, and now we understand, people were not used to think that we could engage in big changes in the city. So their proposals from the first generation of projects were kind of improvements of what was already happening. They were not very disruptive because people didn't believe in that we could do big things. Nowadays, we have projects that are much more challenging because we deliver Caldera, we deliver the South Summit, we deliver the Mark of Poa, we deliver the masters among the three institutions. So people believe now that, and that's maybe the biggest conquer, the biggest reward of all this process, is that the city started to believe in itself again. So then it was the first generation of the idea was to have 6-month cycles. Projects would be approved by the table in May, and they would have to give a public report of what they were doing in 6 months. If the project was not advancing into cycles, then it would go back to the wall, and we would continue the projects that were kind of finding their way. Each project has its own governance. We would have facilitators for projects that would be people that would be, we didn't call them leaders or coordinators, just facilitators to make sure that we didn't create a hierarchy or the idea of someone was giving the orders and the others were waiting for it. And then the pandemic, we had to kind of put things in the box a little bit, but Pact was very important to kind of mobilize people to do community things. We created a special page to support the small business. Pact was responsible to create Brothers in Arms, that was a collective action to kind of make face shields that was done by different kind of peoples that have 3D printers all around the city, following a general project that was created that works, given free, and people would donate the material, and people would print. We would collect them, put the acetatos, and we kind of sent to Brazil thousands, hundreds of thousands of face shields, that were created here in this network of actors that felt that they needed to do something. That's the thing about Pacto Alegre. It kind of unlocked the idea that of engaged citizenship. Everyone in Porto Alegre wants to be a part of it. Everyone wanted to be a part of South Summit. Uh, a lot of institutions created innovation spaces. A lot of people are proposing new ideas to the city. We cannot control the movement anymore. Pacto already yet have their projects. They are very important. We have the Innovative Territories project that's amazing, that looks into inclusive innovation, and we can talk about that later on. But we kind of got recognized as a city that learned how to do things collectively. And that's one of the things that most impresses people when they come to Porto Alegre. You speak with a lot of players, and we do have kind of with a personal way of telling it. The narrative is the same one. You would find the same narrative with Pedro Valério, that's the CEO of Caldera, with José Renato Hopf, that's the CEO of South Summit, with the guys from Tecnopuc, led by Jorge Aldi, or the guys at Badesul, and we became one of the destinies of innovation in Latin America. A lot of cities in Brazil and a lot of cities in Latin America are visiting us to understand what we got right, in a sense. And like I said, the idea was to make sure that the whole it's more important than the part.
Brilliant. Luis, that's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Maybe I could just draw some final thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Most important, you've told this amazing journey and how important it is to build that narrative. Where's it going next? So, what's the next chapter of the story?
Well, we don't know yet. we learned, we respond a lot to what the society uh, is giving in terms of feedback. Like one of the last projects that we approved was Poor Without Waste. Why this project was put on? Because we already have a lot of players in the city that were trying to do some things to make more sustainable ways. And they kind of look at Pacto and said, okay, we need to do that at a city level, you know? And then we decided to put these initiatives together. So that was what Pacto created, the idea that at some point, some initiatives need to be a kind of ecosystem initiative, you know? And when they are a Pacto project, we kind of get much easier connections. People receive them better. They believe in it more. The idea, the challenges are that every uh, win that we have, every achievement that we have, kind of pushes us to do more transformative projects. So the project that we are running nowadays, that's educating city. The idea of making all places in the city possibilities of learning. Innovative territories that are looking at the peripheric areas and make sure that we are building hubs of innovation in these areas, empowering local institutions that would be our connectors for innovation, entrepreneurship, public policies, and other policies that were done by different actors that would foster these communities. We just finished yesterday an exercise with IXL, that's an international consultancy team, with 4 students from the universities that were being mentored by IXL to be the mentors of local business in one of the innovation hubs up atop Morro da Cruz. That was amazing, you know, because we were using students to learn about the theories of innovation and to act as real change makers in the community. And the local jobs said, I never received something like that, you know. We put, we have 7 territories where we put Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, with a large bandwidth, and the people say, normally people would come here and say about things and things wouldn't happen. You said that you would do it, and we have the Wi-Fi in 3 to 4 months, you know. We learn how to use the public and the private somehow in a synergy, you know. Sometimes we can do it with public policies, and I'm doing a lot of that, but my partner is also at the city administration. But sometimes the private is much quicker. I said I was saying, and I forgot to say that we had a main decision that was how do you relate it with the 77 now more than 100 institutions that are on the table of Pacto Alegre. We thought about doing an agreement that would pass through all institutions, and I said, okay, we will take like 6 months to 1 year to just be approved by all the legal departments in all these institutions. Yeah. We might not even get a version that was accepted for everyone. And we decided that participation in Pacto Alegre would not be formal. The institutions just have to express that they adhere to our manifest. You know, we do not have one legal document that creates Pacto. Pacto is the spirit, the movement, the idea, like we say, the emergent way that the ecosystem kind of find a way to relate to itself. And what happens nowadays in Porto Alegre is that we have a little bit what was one of the most powerful imaginaries in the Silicon Valley. We have very good connections among the leaders of the city, among the innovators of the city. In 2, 3 phone calls, you would engage any institution. You do not have to make a meeting or send a formal letter. Things are very agile nowadays in the city. So we have a good idea. I would call Pedro Valério. Oh, let's bring Caldeira into it. Okay, I mean, they do not need to receive the description or the formal agreement or the legal requirement. we would say to one of the secretaries, "Oh, I have one guy there that can we adapt this public policy to make sure that we can engage with one of the innovation territories. Let's do it." You know, it's more action than talk and documents about it. You know, so and that kind of empowers everyone to kind of feel that we can enact change. You know, we can make things happen. You know, and that's maybe the most marvelous thing that the city got the ability, got back the ability of dreaming, of looking into wide horizons. You know, it's a kind of it's ecstatic instead of depressed nowadays. We do have challenges: transportation, public safety, education. All of them are still there, but there is a much more powerful belief, and that has been incredible because some people that have left the city nowadays they are coming back to Porto Alegre and say, "God, it's a new Porto Alegre that I'm finding. I want to go back. You know, I want to be again, here again. I want to be part of it." There is one girl that is working for an institution in Porto Alegre and in São Paulo, and she just wrote to me and said, "I want to do a business. I want to do a project in Porto Alegre because Porto Alegre it's amazing nowadays, you know." So that's wonderful. Yeah, that's really wonderful.
Luis Carlos, thank you so much. That's passionate. It's, for me, also, it gets to the heart of it. We can do things together.
Yeah.
But nicely, it isn't just, oh, let's do things together. You've got to create it. We talk a lot about innovation models, and we think businesses need to reinvent their innovation model. I think what you're doing with Pacto is reinventing the innovation model on a regional basis. Thank you so much.
There is one tricky question: is how we can pass on the leadership of Pacto Alegre, you know, because it was amazing because from the four initial guys, two of them became the secretaries of innovation of the state of Rio Grande do Sul. The whole strategy of development of the state of Rio Grande do Sul is related to Pacto Alegre. The main programs that we have in here were brought from Pacto to the state of Rio Grande do Sul. The idea of Inova ES, the idea of having regional nets of innovation, that's a flowering from, but two of them kind of left because of that. There is just me and Audi from the initial four. We do have some new leaderships that have came into Pacto, but we do the support of Pacto Alegre is done on a voluntary basis, and that's kind of catchy somehow, you know, because there is a lot of effort going into it. There is a lot of work going into it. Me and my Audi, we already had established careers. We could give the time and the energy necessary to support Pacto Alegre. But how will you go on if at some point, and that will be natural, me and Audi also have to kind of get into other roles or pass on the baton of Pacto Alegre. That's mainly what's kind of worrying us nowadays, you know, because the energy, the movement in there, like I said, the institution already behaving on that way. But for Pacto itself, we need to think a little bit about how to make sure that the governance kind of is sustainable over time.